Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 6 of the anime series Galilei Donna. And this was quite a gripping, edge-of-your-seat episode, I have to say, following on from all the destruction rained down at the end of the previous episode. The top priority for the sisters Ferrari is, of course, the well-being of their eldest, Hazuki, who is very ill, very, in a bad way. And so they make a course for the nearest hospital in these frozen wastes of the Netherlands that they find themselves in. And this turns out to coincide with the exact same plan of that being, for the Black Ganymede Sky Pirate faction, as well as Roberto Materazzi of the Admi Moon Company. So essentially you have all of these different forces showing up at this one and only hospital where the power is draining and everything like that, and you just see how brutal this Roberto character really is. Now, I find it fascinating that we flash back sort of in nightmarish dreams, recollections of his childhood, that his father was a very giving and selfless person. Kind of reminded me of the origin of Batman, Thomas Wayne being someone who would be giving of his wealth and try to share it for the lesser fortunate souls. And that's very much what Roberto's natural father was like. But of course, there was like a ship crash or a meteor crash or something that just leveled his house, killed his mother instantly, and ended up injuring to the point of death his father. And we saw that the two homeless men that essentially the father gave all of their Thanksgiving feast to, or what have you, whatever the meal, was a special occasion, gave all this food to them, and they came back and then they robbed his mother of her precious jewel, her lifeless body, under chunks of the roof of this house and everything. And you can see how this really scarred Roberto from a very early age. Now, of course, he was later adopted by the head of the Admi Moon Corporation, and that's very intriguing to learn that he's not naturally the son of this figurehead for this company who's going around calling all these pirate factions pirates and ruthless murderers and everything, when we're basically seeing, this is the second time out where we're getting a little more familiar with the selflessness of these pirate factions. They're only really stealing and doing these things because the richer, more wealthy segments of the community and, the enterprising companies of the world are keeping natural resources like food and energy and power from them. And so they have no recourse but to respond with thievery to get the necessary basics of survival. And we see just how selfless the leader of the Black Ganymede crew is when he finds out that Hazuki is laid out for the count, very ill. He sends his two chief thugs to go and help Kazuki and Hozuki get back into the Galileo to basically get the medicine that they've stolen from the hospital to her. And essentially, as I say, you see the brutality of Roberto Materazzi as he pulls a gun on the people once the power has been siphoned from the first floor of this hospital and people are freezing and they're starting to clamor and say, let's take life support off the people upstairs, let's put the heat down on us, we'll pay. They're very selfish, they're very, unconcerned with the well-being of other people, and he kind of comes in there looking at himself as being a righteous archangel of, deciding good and evil. He starts taking lives, and he really feels like this is his choice to make. It's a megalomaniacal brain process that he's basically been reduced to. And it's very interesting because, of course, you see him as a child, and thinking in terms of, as he grows older, he's falling further and further down into the pits of hell psychologically and with the evil things he's doing. But he thinks, in a twisted sense, that he's right, that morally this is his job. So you see him conflicting, of course, with the Black Ganymede crew, killing some of them, if not killing them, injuring them severely. And we find that, essentially the leader of the Black Ganymede guys, I still haven't caught his name, I don't know if it was ever spoken on screen or not, the one who has a really sort of fascination with Hazuki, he's the guy who sent his men to help Kazuki and Hozuki, respectively, get back into Galileo. He basically calls on Anna at a certain point. She's looking longingly at Roberto, and he makes mention of the fact that she's looking at him as if she is his girlfriend or something like that. And that speaks to the speculation I've had since her debut in the series that there's something more going on with her character. Now, is she actually aligned with the Admi Moon Corporation or Roberto Materazzi? It remains to be seen, of course, because we leave off with this particular episode. The Galileo just barely manages to get out of of there, but not before. Just a spectacular WTF of this activation of this little sort of magical hourglass figure surrounded by the shape of a goldfish that activates when the gunfire is going off, and an explosion happens because of a ricochet and, blows up gas cans. All of a sudden this energy, and I think this is the second time we've seen something similar to this, just emanates out of it, and you see Roberto just wide-eyed looking, mouth agape, recognizing this is something unnatural. Is this, in fact, the Galileo Tessero that everyone is after? Some sort of energy or barrier or something? Does it stop time because it is an hourglass? I don't know. But whatever happened, it froze everybody in place, kind of, and knocked them out. And that is when the Galileo makes their escape. They get the medicine to their eldest sister. And so we leave off there very sort of intriguingly, because I really just don't know where we're going to go next in the story. And so I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 6 of Galilei Donna, if you've seen it. Otherwise, I highly recommend checking it out. And that'll be it for me on this one. Hope this video finds you well. I'll catch you later. Peace.